Caitlin Clark fans are not happy. I saw Stephanie White's name trending, and I was like, click. Got to be more careful. After last night's performance, in which Caitlin Clark turned in arguably her worst game ever, the one thing I did notice last night was the lack of running and gunning that we had seen over the last, 12 games or so? No, the Fever have been hot. They've been real hot. Till last night when cold water was thrown all over.
The broadcast cameras caught the exact moment everything fell apart on the Indiana sideline. Caitlin Clark walked straight past Stephanie White, refusing to make eye contact, completely ignoring her head coach during a tense timeout. White threw her hands up, visibly agitated, twitching on the sideline while yelling into empty space as the arena fell dead silent. It was an unmistakable public fracture between a generational superstar and a coach who looked utterly lost.
Let's take the temperature. Whoa. The Fever, social media, is back to being lit. On fucking fire. Fire. The Fever offense is putting up historic numbers led by record-setting all-star trio Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, and Leah Boston. The first comment, make the announcement. Thank you, Stephanie. Interesting you post this after that stinker they put up last night.
The outrage online detonated within minutes, turning social media into an absolute war zone. Fans watched the hottest team in basketball completely stall out in what became one of the most agonizing, boring games of the entire season. The running and gunning system that produced a historic offensive stretch over 12 games vanished into thin air overnight. Instead of letting Clark orchestrate the floor, the coaching staff implemented a sluggish, unwatchable half-court grind.
Whoa, the pressure, the violence, the heat. It's being turned back up under Stephanie White's ass now. Guys, what have I told you? The Indiana Fever are the closest thing that WNBA has to the Dallas Cowboys, or the New York Yankees, or the Philadelphia Eagles. The fan base is not afraid to unleash hell on Stephanie White if they don't like what they're seeing. That's the kind of fandom I like to see, Frank.
Viral clips circulated, showing Clark physically disengaging while White frantically tried to bark out late-game instructions. Fans immediately recognized the body language of a player who had completely lost faith in the tactical game plan. When you take the ball out of the hands of the greatest playmaker in modern basketball, resentment builds instantly. Clark had been driving to the rim and creating effortless transition offense for weeks, but suddenly, she was placed in schematic handcuffs.
How about Caitlin Clark walking away from Stephanie White? Pretty disgusted. It's like, Stephanie White's trying to talk to her. Caitlin's like, ugh, you suck. Oh, you don't deserve a car. Get away from me. Can you not do that? Can you not shoot again tonight, Caitlin? Not ever again. Can you not shoot? How about Stephanie White throwing a fit? Right back here. Look at her. Oh, she's disgusted.
The tactical shift looked less like a professional game plan and more like an intentional rhythm-killing experiment. Indiana abandoned their high-speed fast breaks and defaulted into endless, predictable isolation sets for Kelsey Mitchell. While Mitchell took a massive volume of difficult shots, the rest of the roster stood flat-footed around the perimeter. The explosive chemistry between Clark, Mitchell, and Leah Boston was completely dismantled in favor of stagnant offensive sets.
But we did not see something changed where Caitlin Clark was no longer getting up and down the court, driving to the – remember, she'd been driving to the basket a lot. She'd been knocking down a lot of finger rolls, a lot of layups. Last night, none of that. It's like Did Stephanie White put some handcuffs on her? And then what has that been doing? Her driving down the lane, driving in, getting those points, getting those foul shots, opens her up to do what? Knock down shots from long range. Not to mention these little middies she's got.
Fever supporters flooded message boards, comparing the franchise's fanatical pressure to the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees. This fan base does not stay quiet when they witness coaching malpractice on national television. They demanded immediate accountability, calling the performance an unforgivable step backward for a team destined for championship contention. White was suddenly thrown right into the center of a boiling media storm, with nowhere to hide.
Well, that's good. That's good. Wow. It did not take long, folks. Go to hell, Steph. Love will win. Oh, that's good. Horrible, unwatchable basketball. I said last night was in the top 3 hardest games to watch of the season. It was brutal. God dog, last night was boring. In fact, I said last night during the watch party that
what infuriated viewers most was the lack of in-game adjustments against the suffocating interior defense. Indiana repeatedly drove straight into the teeth of the paint, getting blocked at the rim over and over by elite rim protection. There were no kickouts to open shooters, no off-ball movement, and 0 tactical counters from the bench. White stood frozen on the sideline, with her arms crossed, watching the same catastrophic offensive mistake play out on repeat.
In fact, I said last night during the watch party that only the WNBA could have a battle between what's supposed to be 2 of their top 5 biggest stars, Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. Only in the W could the WNBA figure out how to take a game like that, make it close for most of the game, and it be boring as hell. That's some W shit. That happens a lot in this league. A lot.
The physical abuse Clark took throughout the night pushed the controversy to absolute boiling temperatures. Opposing defenders were practically tackling the rookie sensation on the floor without drawing basic foul calls. Yet, instead of defending her franchise player and drawing a technical foul to protect her star, White remained passive. That silence spoke volumes to a fan base that expects their head coach to fight tooth and nail for their roster.
Caitlin White literally got tackled. Stephanie White just sits there with her arms crossed, sniffing and twitching. Congratulations, Stephanie Weatherspoon. Aw, damn. Shout out to Teresa Weatherspoon. Whoa. Lethargic performance. That's on the coach. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Stephanie White, rhythm-killing circle the wagons offense. God. Well, just make one more pass. I dare you. Make one more pass.
Online critics quickly labeled the scheme a circle the wagons hub offense, designed to take the baton away from Clark. When Clark operates as the primary conductor, the entire floor opens up, allowing her to hit signature floaters and step-back jumpers. Taking away her transition freedom forced her into arguably the least productive statistical outing of her professional career. Fans pointed directly to White's stubborn philosophy as the primary culprit behind the sudden drop in production. The sideline footage became a viral sensation on video platforms, drawing millions of views within a matter of hours. Commentators highlighted how White appeared rattled, pacing frantically and yelling frustrated remarks under her breath. It looked like a coach completely overwhelmed by the blinding spotlight that follows Clark wherever she goes. When the pressure reached its highest peak, the composure on the Indiana bench shattered entirely. Even the most anticipated superstar matchup of the season was turned into an unwatchable, grueling snooze fest. A clash featuring 2 of the league's top 5 marquee stars should have produced electric, high-scoring highlights. Instead, the tactical decisions dragged the entire contest into the mud, turning a marquee showcase into a brutal defensive slog. The league office could not have been thrilled, seeing their biggest ratings drawn neutralized by rigid offensive schemes. Insiders noted that the front office is well aware of the intense digital backlash surrounding every single coaching decision. Thousands of comments called for drastic adjustments, warning that mismanagement could derail the franchise's championship timeline. In the modern sports landscape, losing the locker room and the public narrative at the same time is fatal. White entered the season with immense expectations, but this disastrous night flipped the narrative entirely upside down. The dynamic between Clark and the coaching staff has become the single most scrutinized relationship in women's sports. Every glare, every shrug, and every ignored instruction during timeouts is analyzed by millions of eagle-eyed viewers. When a generational talent feels restricted by outdated schemes, friction behind closed doors is inevitable. The tension visible during this game was not an isolated incident, but the boiling point of weeks of schematic frustration. Statistical analysts quickly pointed out the drastic drop in transition possessions during the brutal loss. Indiana went from leading the league in fast break efficiency to running robotic 30-second half-court sets with zero ball movement. That tactical regression completely eliminated Clark's greatest superpower, processing defenses at lightning speed in open space. Neutering your best offensive engine is a coaching blunder that no analyst could logically justify. Rebounding woes further compounded the disaster, leaving Indiana helpless on second-chance opportunities. The coaching staff failed to implement basic box-out schemes or make timely substitutions when the front court was getting physically overwhelmed. The team looked completely unprepared for physical battles, exposing glaring flaws in White's game preparation. Without fundamental discipline on the glass, Indiana had no platform to launch the transition breaks they desperately needed. The criticism was not just coming from casual observers, but from deeply invested analysts who track every single possession. They highlighted the lack of basic screen and roll variation and the refusal to let Clark hunt mismatches on the perimeter. When an offense becomes entirely predictable, even mediocre defensive teams can lock down superstar talents. White's failure to recognize these basic tactical counters left everyone wondering what the coaching staff was doing in practice. Social media users began drawing sharp comparisons to past coaching failures that doomed otherwise loaded rosters. The sentiment was unanimous across the board. Modern basketball requires adaptability, pace, and player empowerment, not stubborn micromanagement. Fans warned that trying to force a free-flowing maestro into a rigid, outdated system is a recipe for total collapse. The viral fury was not just about one bad loss, but about protecting the team's long-term future. The post-game atmosphere in the locker room was described as unusually cold and noticeably tense. Clark's quiet frustration stood in stark contrast to the lively, high-energy celebrations from prior winning streaks. When players realize the coaching strategy is actively working against their natural strengths, trust evaporates immediately. Rebuilding that trust requires a level of humility and tactical flexibility that the coaching staff has yet to demonstrate on the floor. Every time White attempted to call for an extra pass, the offense seemed to stall out even further into the shot clock. Players hesitated on open looks, second-guessed their instincts, and threw careless turnovers under heavy pressure. That level of collective hesitation is the ultimate hallmark of a confused, overcoached basketball team. Instead of playing free and confident, Indiana looked paralyzed by complex, ineffective tactical instructions. The visual evidence of Clark waving off bench instructions during late-game possession cemented the narrative of total disconnect. Great players know when a play call has zero chance of succeeding against a set defense. Taking matters into her own hands was an act of pure survival on the court, yet the structural spacing was too broken to salvage. That moment exposed a massive divide between the sideline vision and the reality on the hardwood. Rival franchises around the league are closely monitoring how Indiana handles this unprecedented level of intense media scrutiny. When a team features a cultural phenomenon, ordinary coaching mistakes become international talking points within seconds. There is zero room for error, zero margin for tactical stubbornness, and zero patience from a global fan base. Wade is learning the hard way that managing generational talent requires evolution, not rigid control. The calls for immediate philosophical changes have reached a crescendo that cannot be ignored by management. Indiana must decide whether to double down on an outdated half-court philosophy or hand the keys back to their franchise superstar. Clark thrives when given the green light to push the pace, create chaos, and dictate tempo from baseline to baseline. Stripping away that freedom is an existential threat to the team's ultimate championship ambitions. The boiling frustration from this viral disaster marks a critical crossroads for the entire organization this season. The coaching staff has been served a massive wake-up call by both the fan base and their own locker room. If adjustments are not made immediately, the rift between the bench and the court will continue to widen into an irreparable canyon. The entire basketball world is watching to see who blinks first in this high-stakes tactical standoff. True greatness on the basketball court cannot be caged by rigid systems or stubborn coaching philosophies. When you possess a transcendent playmaker capable of reshaping the entire sport, the only winning move is to let them fly completely untethered. Indiana's championship destiny will not be determined by drawing up rigid half-court plays on a clipboard, but by trusting Clark to unleash pure, unscripted magic on the hardwood.